Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ron Paul, who's up there on the Hill today, a very busy man. And everything he talked about for 30 years is unfortunately unfolding, so his credibility is at the gold standard right now as the mainstream is forced to check into the facts he's been laying out. I wanted to talk to him about the deepening depressionary system we're going into, what the private Federal Reserve is up to, and his bill to abolish it, how we can support that. Congressman, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.
Every few weeks they come before the Banking Committee, and you bring up the fact that what they're doing is destroying us. What do we need to do to bring the private Federal Reserve under control?
Well, it has to be an uprising by the people. There has to be enough people who will demand that their congressmen respond, and that is building. A year ago or two, nobody in Washington even thought about the Federal Reserve. Today, there's a lot more thinking going on and a lot more support for our position, so it is growing. And yet, we're not on the verge of changing it. I have the bill to get rid of the Federal Reserve. That's the major step and the ultimate step, and they'll probably self-destruct before we actually pass legislation. But the bill that is more important in the short run is the auditing bill, the 1207 bill, because that means they have to start answering our questions. Today they're protected. They're in total secrecy, and they're protected by the law. If 1207 is passed, we have an audit, and they have to answer the questions. And I figure if we ever get that far and get the exposure and get the transparency that we need, then people will wake up and realize, why do we have them at all?
Senator Sanders grilled them, as you know, last week, saying that he's supporting 1207 or a version in the Senate because Bernanke, private Fed chief, just said, I'm not going to tell you where the money went, buddy. I mean, that's amazing to see our elected Congress, the most powerful branch of government, according to the founders, being told, kiss off.
Right. And I know Sanders real well. He was on the Banking Committee with me before he went into the Senate, and I called him after that. And I believe he has now introduced my version of the transparency bill, and I've introduced his version. So both bills exist. Mine's a little bit more conclusive, and it removes the total authority for them to not answer questions. His is specifically designed to answer certain questions and reveal where the $1 trillion went. They're very similar, but somewhat different in nature. So we both support each other's bill, and they've been introduced in both chambers.
Well, public support for this, and the Congress itself, the majority are saying they're angry to not know where the money is, and Bloomberg sued to find out and has been told no on their FOIA. I mean, if this gets media attention, I can see no way that Congress wouldn't vote for a proper audit of the private Federal Reserve.
No, they're going to if we can get it that far. And, it's a good issue. So, like so many of our issues, we bring different factions together, liberal and conservatives, under the Constitution. Because if you're a good, honest liberal like Bernie Sanders, he's an honest person, but he's very, very liberal and calls himself a socialist. But he agrees on the transparency issues. So this whole idea that we expose them should bring populists, libertarians, constitutionals, liberals, socialists all together and say, if we can't do this, what's left of representative government? There's nothing left. So it's a good unifier. I think it's a great issue.
Bloomberg reports $9.7 trillion has disappeared in one form or another just out of the U.S., another $10 trillion globally. And now Larry Summers is saying they want more money, they want more unlimited cash.
That's what they're doing. They keep coming back, and what's the argument you hear up here? You hear this argument, which I know there's some disagreement even in our circles, this whole idea of earmarks. They're dealing with these 1% of earmarks. If you vote against them all, you don't cut one penny of spending. And they're talking about that endlessly. They're holding up the bill in the Congress over this so-called issue. At the same time, this number that you mentioned, the $9.7 trillion, we need to earmark every penny there.
Stay there, Congressman, stay there. Okay, Congressman, we had to take a hard break there for the satellites because it's syndicated. Sorry about interrupting you. You were getting into the $9.7 trillion. that's disappeared into a black hole, not $700 billion, which they said was just a really big number they picked, and then you got cut off by the break. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was talking about the need to monitor everything that we do and the transparency. And too often people concentrate on a non-issue, which is 1% of the budget called earmarks. And even if you eliminated them, it wouldn't eliminate one penny. The real earmarks need to be done, like, say, TARP funds. We gave the Treasury $350 billion and then another $350, and there are no instructions, no earmarks. The Congress needs to have more responsibility, more earmarks. Of course, all the spending should be voted down, but when they do spend, we ought to know where it's going. But the biggest, the largest amount, of course, is the Federal Reserve. They're totally off budget. They're like a government unto itself. They can create trillions. It's probably $8 or $9, $10 trillion that they've been involved in, and they have no legal responsibility to answer any of our questions. And that, of course, is what Bernie Sanders and I have been working on, he in the Senate and me over in the House, to try to get legislation passed. And I think you've indicated that it ought to be a very popular thing to bring all these factions together and support our position. I can't imagine any American saying, well, yeah, create $400 or $500 billion or a couple trillion, and you have no responsibility. I think it should bring everybody together on this issue.
And is that H.R. 207?
1207.
Okay, H.R. 1207.
Right.
I didn't have the bill in front of me.
And then I should have the Senate bill number, but somebody could find that rather easily because we want to help Sanders get support for his bill as well.
Absolutely. In fact, I'll Google that and give that out after you leave us. Continuing with the economy, this is clearly entering depression level. The banks are doing what you said they would do. They're hoarding the money, buying up other good banks. CBS reported $250 billion of bailout money has gone to the Caymans alone, the biggest names out there. Bernard Madoff is keeping his $60 million penthouse and mailing gold and diamonds out of the country to his family that's run to South America. He's the founder of the NASDAQ. It turns out all these other big banks are involved in similar Ponzi schemes. Shouldn't we be having criminal investigations of these people instead of the very same banksters now telling us we're going to have a new bank of the world that we pay carbon taxes to?
Yeah, we should have minimal government, but even in a minimalist government, your government is supposed to deal with theft and physical harm and fraud, and that's what's going on, and that's what they ignore or protect. They're supposed to protect contracts, but they are interfering with contracts all the time and trying to tell people exactly what mortgage rates should be and interest rates should be and price fixing and all these things. But no, I think it's horrible what they're doing, and they're not addressing the subjects that they should. And they should be prosecuting these people. These people should be in prison. But, if you go back to Enron, when that company went bankrupt, it was a major event. And they claimed up here in Washington that the reason was that we needed even more regulation, we needed more SEC agents, and we needed more IRS agents. At the same time, he was convicted of fraud under Texas fraud laws. And he went to prison, and, and that thing was cleaned up, and the market wiped out the value of the company because it had no value. But what was our response in Congress was to pass Sarbanes-Oxley, more regulations, which have actually contributed to some of the weakness in the economy. You just can't regulate away the mistakes that are made when governments are too much involved with community reinvestment acts and easy money that the Federal Reserve creates. Regulations cannot solve that problem. But your point, the purpose of the federal government should be, under these circumstances, to prosecute fraud.
We'll take the Securities and Exchange Commission testifying before Congress, almost a month ago. They declared presidential prerogative and executive authority, I guess under national security, to not talk about why for 9 years they were given private investigations detailing Bernie Madoff's crimes. And they kept saying to the Congress people, well, he hasn't been convicted. He hasn't pled guilty. And they said it's not alleged. He's admitted to this.
Yeah, and, as bad as the executive branch is, so much of that responsibility falls on the Congress, too. I mean, we're so negligent to just allow the executive branch to run roughshod over us. But if we had some people in the Congress that would have a little bit of courage, they could deal with this and handle it. But no, if they said national security interests, whether it has to do with torture and secret prisons and prison camps and all those kind of things. Oh, national security. We can't interfere with that. So therefore, the Congress says nothing.
Specifically, sir, speaking of national security, Obama has said, Reuters headline, Obama backs Bush on no rights for detainees under Bill of Rights, Constitution, or Geneva Convention. He's increasing the troops in Afghanistan. He's saying he's going to keep troops indefinitely, at least 50,000 in Iraq. Going back on that promise, he's declaring a lot of executive privilege that he criticized under Bush, and he's expanding the NORTHCOM 20,000 troops to patrol America. He's creating this quasi-governmental USAService.org. I mean, can you comment on those points of Obama? And many people are saying it looks like he may be worse than Bush on liberties.
Yeah, and I don't hesitate to make that point, especially if I happen to get on a liberal station that might be sympathetic with some of my views, but they still like Obama.